Hello everyone and welcome to V8 Online's coverage of round number 10. That's right, 10 of the Monday night V8 Supercars Strength of Field. The championship is coming to a close, but if there is any circuit that can mix things up, it is indeed the high curbs and hard braking zones of the Imola circuit. I'm Bo Elber, and alongside me in the commentary booth is Mr. Zachary Hanlon, with Jay Kennedy pressing the magic buttons to keep this show on the road. And Zach, we have an extremely cool track here today, one pit stop and 23 grueling laps to face.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really interesting race tonight. We saw some fantastic racing last time we came out to Imola in these V8 supercars, and with the guys, as you said, with the low track temperatures, being able to possibly run a little bit longer and a little bit harder on those Dunlop tires, it'll definitely give us a good amount of racing. And having that typical one pit stop strategy always throws things up in the air. We'll see a couple of people playing the strategy there, trying to get the undercut. But yeah, every time we come here, it seems to make fantastic racing, and I think we're going to have a really good one tonight.
Yeah, we definitely could be in for a great race because we have a lot of new drivers really fighting a lot higher than they normally are. Brady Myers is a driver that's always fighting the top 5, always fighting just for an outside shot at a podium, but he has real car speed here at Imola this weekend. He has been flying and has currently put the car on provisional pole by just under a tenth over Luke Harvey and Marlon McMullen. So these top 3 cars are so close to one another, which is fantastic to see, and they're all working their way on their second qualifying laps now. And this circuit is extremely easy to get an off track here, so they have to really maximize their laps, as Kurt Stenberg is doing now as he heads into the Aqua Minerale. And you can see they're still running an old livery from the Matty Torkins race that did run last weekend, which was a massive success, raising over $13,500 for what is a fantastic cause. So we really do hope, from behalf of all of us at V8 Online, that does go a long way into helping Matty Torkins and his family. But nonetheless, Zach, qualifying is happening, and these top 3 cars on their second lap now, it's getting very, very tight.
Yeah, and Brady Myers had some fantastic pace the last time we came out here to Imola as well. He was very comparable to V8 Scops legend Jared Filsell, who decided to come in and play around with the boys. And he was very, very comparable on pace there. So not surprising at all to see him so high at the top. Couple of cars, yeah, just coming through on their second lap now. Luke Harvey's done a good job to put that number 3 car up in the number 2 position as well. Only, just below a tenth on that one. So he was way, way off the pace last time we came out to Imola. So good to see Luke Harvey bringing up the pace a little bit, because he's always good fun to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. Another driver that we have to keep an eye on is Marlon McMullen, coming across the start-finish line now. Can he improve on a 0.48? No, he can't. It's a 0.55. So no improvement there for Marlon McMullen. Michael Cracknell making his way across the line, and no improvement either. So a lot of drivers not quite getting the same amount of grip on their second lap as they would perhaps like. Brenton Hobson, one of those drivers on his second lap at the moment, representing the number 7 card today, just a little bit more iRacing, and he would have been in this familiar position, number 6. potentially, but nonetheless, through this very tricky section of corners now, double right, which is constantly tightening, and it's very hard to get that car stopped without locking that front right tyre, but he does a fantastic job and now makes his way to the Variante Alta chicane, which is such a tricky corner to set the car up for because you want it to be as low to the ground to keep the center of gravity down, but you just cannot get through that chicane with a low ride height, Zach.
No, because you just want it's very leaning on how much curb you can take through there. And my goodness, can you take some curb through there? But if you do run the ride height on the car too low, you do bottom out. And those are things that you think about when you're, or things that you do when you're testing prior to rounds. You go through certain corners and you change the ride height to see if the car will bottom out. Those are things that most of these guys will have done coming here prior and should have adjusted their sets for that. But also with these big V8 supercars, I mean, they can take a bit of a beating anyway. They do love using the curbs. So that's probably why there's so much fun around here. There are quite a few curbs to use and a couple where they can get up on two wheels. So they do enjoy using them. But just having a look down the order as we see it right now, and a face that I'm very, I guess, confused to see so far down, Wayne Burke, down in 16th position right now, and I don't think that he's coming out for another lap.
No, not at all. He's on his second lap currently, and if you look at him, he's currently doing 8 kilometers an hour, which is not optimal racing speeds, unfortunately. So for the Synergy Sim Racing legend, who has so much pace often in these races, it's going to be a very, very tough start from position number 16, and this is not a first corner you want to be starting so far back because it is such a difficult sequence of corners with the double chicane going from the left to the right to the left once again. So it's going to be extremely difficult, but we will run you through our grid, and it's going to be Brady Myers for Progression Racing Australia, kicking off 23 laps here at Imola from pole position, but he has to deal with Luke Harvey, who has a lot of car speed in the Trans-Tasman racing car, and Marlon McMullen, Thomas McMillan, and Michael Cracknell will round out our top 5. Brett Loxton, Kurt Stenberg, and Brenton Hobson are going to be your top 8, with Steve Jansen and Leon Tander rounding out row number 5.
Then we've got Thomas Hins, who's going to be joined alongside Daniel Williams. They're followed by Jamie McKnight and Scott Sislowski. Greg Sharp going to take out the top 15 position with Wayne Burke alongside him. Wayne will be looking to push through the field very quickly throughout this race. Ryan Bodley in 17th position, joined by Dominic Savicki on row number 9. They've got Jason Cossey and Kyle Stokes coming in behind them. Job Stewart, Harley Haber taking out P21 and 22. Jacob Knight and David Kinman, in 23 and 24. And the rest of our field, Mark McDonald and 2 cars that did not set a qualifying time. Corey Preston and Brendan Jackson round out our 27-strong field of V8 supercars here tonight. And looks a bit cloudy out there. Doesn't look particularly bright, but I think that the next 40-odd minutes are going to be brightened up by the racing we're going to see now, Bo.
Oh, absolutely. 23 laps at Imola will never disappoint, and we've got a lot of drivers up a lot higher than normal that we would perhaps expect to see, which is going to be fantastic, but we also have a few shocks further down than we would expect to see. Wayne Burke from 16th. Corey Preston, who has opted for the Holden today, is going to be kicking things off from P number 26, as we're just getting ready now with 20 seconds or less before we kick things off. And the revs are going to rise as we get ready for the race start here at Imola. And the clutches will drop, and it's a great launch initially from Luke Harvey, and it's going to make it side by side with Brady Myers as they make their way now the turn at number 1. It's not exactly straight into this braking zone, and Marlon McMullen just getting his nose a little bit up the inside. Myers a little bit tentative on the brakes, but nonetheless gets through as Luke Harvey's going to get extremely sideways, lucky not to rotate the car. But here comes Thomas McMillan around the outside to make something happen potentially. They're going to go side by side into the second chicane. The Variante Villeneuve, and they make contact, and McMillan is going to go straight through the gravel and take that slowdown penalty. Luke Harvey also in the gravel on the exit. You're not going to get a slowdown there. Brett Loxton in the background, looking up the inside of Cracknell, almost on the grass, and also Brenton Hobson on the grass, very sideways into the Tosa hairpin. McMillan there serving his slowdown, and that's going to create a massive bottleneck as they head now into the Tosa complex. The Variante Paratella, as they now make their way through, and so far it's looking relatively clean apart from that little incident for Luke Harvey with the first turn, but so far it's been a fantastic jump for Brady Myers.
Yeah, Brady's going to be licking his chops for that one. That was a really good getaway. He's fantastic advantage now with the cars behind him just scrapping away a tiny bit. Marlon did get into Luke Harvey a little bit at turn 1, and then McMillan turned in a little early at turn 5 and got on the door of Harvey as well. So Harvey taking a bit of a beating, but he's still up there in P number 2. Michael Cracknell, good to see him finally making it through. I mean, he's not through the first lap yet, but he's started up higher than he would have normally and is up now into P number 4 thanks to McMillan going off the road. So finally getting a first lap in for Crackers, and he'll finish that one in 4th with Loxton jumping up a position into P5. So yeah, fairly clean start. Didn't see too much of the back, but what I did see looked clean. So good job, but we still got 22 angry laps ahead of us.
Absolutely, and these laps are not easy. There are a lot of curbs to really fly the car over and make yourself into a little bit of issues as we're going 3 wide, and Wayne Burke is around at turn number 1. The All-Star Racing car involved as well, and there has been chaos, and it's still continuing, unfortunately. And unfortunately, Wayne Burke, his day looks like it might already potentially be done. 3 wide into turn 1 is always a risky situation, and he was so late, just came across on the All-Star car just a little bit there. And unfortunately, Ryan Bodeley had nowhere to go and turned him around, and that was a massive crash to kick lap number 2 off, Zach.
Yeah, well, that is a very hard braking zone down into turn 1, and yeah, if it gets too crowded too quickly, it can get very messy, as we just saw there. So Wayne goes from bad to worse for Wayne. He has some good pace in that car, I'm sure, because he's never slow in one of these V8 supercars. But and just having a look at him now, he was going very slowly, maybe even serving a slowdown that he's gotten out of frustration there. So he'll have to find a lot of pace to make it up to the back of that pack. But if he can, I think he'll at least be able to salvage some positions, maybe up into the top 15 if he can push himself really hard.
Off as well.
Yeah, just saw that there.
So unfortunately for Brenton Hobson, losing 2 spots in the process there. Steve Jansen and McMillan both managing to make their way through. And Thomas Hinz, on his return to sim racing, recently managed to get a brand new wheel and just trying to figure it out today. Having a few issues with his seat as well, so it's not been all smooth sailing, but it could be if he can latch onto the back of Hobbo and potentially move his way forward. But Marlon McMullen at the moment not having a great time, because he's having a fantastic time, sorry, because he's found his way past Luke Harvey, and now we have to see how much pace there is in Marlon McMullen's car. In the race just before this one, the 6:15 race, Marlon McMullen had so much pace in that car and was trading times constantly with Brady Myers, but unfortunately for him, Myers is already 1.6 seconds in the clear.
Yeah, and that's a pretty good margin to have, but Marlon has some nice race pace in that car. I mean, 2 seconds at the beginning of this race isn't really a massive deal. He can claw that back, but also depends if Luke's going to have a bit of a go and decides whether or not he wants to go and take second place again or not. But I suspect that he will just tuck in behind Marlon and keep on going. But Luke is looking pretty racy right now. But and Michael Cracknell's just lost a spot to Kurt Stenberg as well, who's also running that livery from Matty's race. And I do have to say, I was actually able to participate in Matty Torkins' race last Tuesday, and it was such a good event for so many different reasons, not just the cause, but the racing was fantastic. So just want to give a big shout out to everyone who competed on the day, especially those who made it into the main event. Everyone was just out there having a fantastic time and having some really good racing. And we're now just seeing Thomas McMillan under massive pressure now from Michael Cracknell, getting a bump draft down the main straight as they come down into turn 1. He's got Steve Jansen next to him, Crackers does, so they're going to go a little bit into here, and looks like Jansen might have a bit of an advantage, but Crackers is going to come through on turn number 2 there. So they all come in the same way, or all come out the same way as they came in, and Hobbo also looking to regain those positions that he lost from that little mistake earlier too.
Yeah, he is. He's looking very racy in that Synergy Sim Racing car at the moment, but Steve Jansen is no pushover, but he might just be into the toes a hairpin as Hobbo shows the nose, and Jansen gives plenty of room, but it is easy to get a much better run on the outside there, and you can see there, Hobbo had no answer to get the run up the hill. He's got to be a little bit careful, because Hinsey will, if he gets any sniff of an opportunity, he'll go for it, just like here, into Piratella, shows the nose chopped off by Brenton Hobson, so he will hold onto that position just for now, as Crackers leads his angry train. And he'll just be happy to still be in this race, but he will not be enjoying what's in his rearview mirror right now, because all these guys are fighting extremely hard so early in the race, where so much strategy is yet to play. Of course, we have a pit stop here tonight, and with the low track temperature, we could see potentially someone gamble on tyres. We will have to wait and see. But right now, this battle pack is looking extremely angry as we make our way into the Ravazza complex.
Yeah, Thomas Hens has been really wanting to go at it quite a bit. Not sure that the move was quite on there up into turn number 8 before, but if he can get a bit closer next time, he might be able to get up alongside the B pillar or somewhere around there, and he might have a bit of a go, but he has just dropped off Brenton Hobson a little bit, and Steve Jansen has now dropped off Michael Cracknell quite a bit as well. So we're just going to see up the front as well. Luke Harvey's actually almost in the clutches of Brett Loxton, who's sitting in P number 4 and has been doing a fantastic job, but hasn't exactly been lighting up the timing screens. At the moment, Luke Harvey, he must have had a bad lap last time around, because he was nearly 1.7 seconds slower than Marlon McMullen ahead of him, and 8/10 of a second, pardon me, slower than Brett Loxton behind. And I think we just had also Thomas McMillan go through on Kurt Stenberg.
Hobson and Jansen are making their way up the hill now, and they're going to fight it out, and there's almost contact. Steve Jansen so late on the brakes, actually now pushed himself a little bit wide, couldn't get the nose turned in, because he was right underneath the rear wing of Brenton Hobson, and Hinsey was getting extremely racy, as he has been so far in these opening 5 laps, and almost opened the door there. But you can see that Steve Jansen not quite got the confidence on the exit of the Aqua Minerale, as they now fight their way into the Variante Alta, and Hinsey looking very, very strong at the moment. And if he can just get a nice run, which he can't quite do, Steve Jansen actually has that CMR car set up beautifully over the curves. But nonetheless, it's going to be Stenberg and Michael Cracknell making their way side by side. And we'll see who will come out on top there. It looks like Cracknell very late on the brakes and pulls it up as well. So nice move there for Michael Cracknell to get that position on Kurt Stenberg, as these guys are fighting. A little bit of wheel spin on the exit for Stenberg here, but we have seen the slipstream be pretty powerful here down this ever so long front straight. Of course, there used to be a chicane here when Formula One did visit back in 2006, but unfortunately that has been removed. But in some ways it's also a positive, because now we have one of the best overtaking opportunities on the entire track.
Yeah, that's right. And Kurt Stenberg just trying to get back on Michael Cracknell there and regain that position, but Stenberg had a pretty bad lap last time round. It looks like he lost 2 positions on that lap to McMillan and Cracknell, so maybe losing a little bit of pace in that car, using the tyres a little early or something to that effect, but he's definitely not quite on the pace as he could be. And now Brenton Hobson's really, really getting up in there behind him. And Leon Tander and Daniel Williams are also sticking to the back of Thomas Hins pretty well. So a couple of things start heating up a little bit. Definitely can't count those guys out of making their way through this train as well.
Yeah, well, you said there's a lot of things heating up. Another thing that is heating up is potentially the fight for outright winning orders here today, because Marl McMullen, last time around, half a second out of Brady Myers' lead, and once again looking very strong on this lap as well. So perhaps this win is not all settled for Brady Myers. These guys have been so close all week on pace, but right now Brady Myers looking in a very strong position for what I would believe is his very first strength of field race win. So right now, little bit of pressure on the shoulders of the Progression Racing Australia driver, because Marl McMullen, our championship elect, who is a big lead in the championship at the moment as we head with just 2 rounds to go after the checkered flag falls here today. Marl McMullen knows how to win these races. Brady Myers is finding it out the hard way how to do it tonight. Yeah,
and there's also that added mentality of being in the lead and not having won one of these races before. Marlon's already had that pressure on him many, many times, and has, you know, succumbed to that once or twice probably, but most of the time he's been able to pull through and he knows that he can do it. But Brady hasn't been in that situation in one of these strength of field races before. Not that we've seen recently anyway. I'm sure he's picked up a few wins here and there in his time. I'm sure he's a very talented racer, but being in the lead and especially having a guy who you know is fast coming down on you is another pressure that you have to deal with. Oh yeah, back, just get, in fact, that's checked up everyone quite a bit back there.
Yep,
got
and
through
so
on
what that was
Stenberg.
Brenton Hobson with a massive dive up the inside of Kurt Stenberg. A little bit of contact on the exit there, which did fed Stenberg a little bit wide. So a very, very forceful overtake there for Brenton Hobson, making his way past Kurt Stenberg. And we know Stenberg has a lot of pace in that Trans-Tasman Racing Apex Replicas car, but I'm not sure he's going to appreciate that too much. And you can see he's already looking for a way past.
Yeah, I mean, he did lose the 2 positions on the lap before, and I don't know if he made a mistake, I didn't see it, or whether he has just dropped off the pace a little bit, but obviously Brenton wants to get a bit of a move on. Possibly he didn't do as well in qualifying as he could have, as he's now catching up to the back of Michael Cracknell relatively quickly too, but Stenberg's definitely hanging in there, and he hasn't been falling back into the clutches of Steve Jansen at all. However, coming down into turn 1 this time round, might see something else, but we do have the battle for the lead is starting to heat up quite a bit as well, with Marlon McMullen getting very sideways. He's trying to chase down Brady Myers as they come down into the turn 5 and 6 complex. But Brady doing a very good job so far, but you can see that lead just starting to diminish lap after lap. He's got another 15 odd laps he needs to hold on, so about a third of the way through this race right now, and he's going to have to fight for it if he wants to take this victory, I reckon. But after seeing him race a lot in the past, I think he's definitely got what it takes, but it's going to be a tough one, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of tough fights happening at the moment as Michael Cracknell almost thought about retaliating to Brenton Hobson, who did make that move. He's giving him the bumper. He's going to almost send him around. And Brenton Hobson very lucky to hold on to it, but look how it's checked up the field now. All these guys having a bit of a look on each other into the Aqua Minerale section, which is not typically an overtake opportunity normally, but it almost was as Hobbo very lucky to hold on to that. And he's making his way through the field, but he has to be careful when making these moves as Thomas Hinz looks around the outside. That is not what you want to be, and rightfully backs out of it on Steve Jansen. Jansen a little bit of wheel spin on the exit, but will hold that position. This battle is getting increasingly intense at the moment, but we will have to keep our attention at the moment on this little battle happening for the lead at the moment. Brady Myers, last time around, had a lot of wheel spin out of Rovarza, a lot cleaner this time around, so should not see another 7/10 of a second turnaround this time around. A 43.4 for Brady Myers and a 43.5. So Brady just able to retaliate just a little bit, but on the average laps at the moment, Marlon McMullen continues to hunt him down lap after lap.
Yeah, I think Marlon maybe just finally getting within an arm's reach of Brady, just tried to push it a little too hard on that lap, and I think he might have realized that and is just starting to cool it down now. You can see he's being quite a bit smoother through this section of corners here and is now starting to draw his way slowly back in. But turn 1, I think, is going to be the biggest problem for Brady Myers, and he's going to have to figure out how to defend that very, very quickly, because I think it's probably where most of an opportunity for Marlon to come through is just with there's not much pace crossover, so it's going to take a big slipstream or something, I think, for Marlon to get through, and turn 1's definitely the best opportunity for that.
Yeah, potentially, but there is another overtaking opportunity here at Imola, which is not even on the racing circuit. It's the pit lane, and we're now working lap number 9. The tyres will be feeling stressed. They won't have the same amount of grip as they did coming into turn number 1 on lap number 1. So the drivers will be feeling it now, not having as much confidence, and it is almost time to start thinking strategy. And for Brady Myers, strategy is going to be so crucial because McMullen definitely has the car speed on him right now, but Myers did get the pole position. He did pull a nice little gap early in the race, so he does have outright pace. So if Myers can make sure that he gets into the pits first ahead of McMullen, he can hopefully build a little bit of a margin for his sake, but right now there is no margin between these drivers at all, as McMullen's going to have a little sniff down the inside, but backs out of it wisely. There is no need to fight too aggressively at the moment. There is still 14 laps in this race. You do have a bit of margin back to Luke Harvey holding third, just about a second ahead of Brett Loxton with another great drive from him. But for Marlon McMullen, this is a point where he really needs to just focus on how he wants to get this overtake done. Does he want to save tires and try and get an overcut? Does he want to try and get an undercut? Or does he want to do it on raw pace, almost diving into the back bump of Brady Myers, into the Tosa hairpin? Myers a little bit distracted by that, just lights the rear tires up a little bit, And every little, bit of wheel spin for Myers at this point, every little hesitation, aiming for an apex of the corner, McMullen will be seeing that, and he'll be smelling blood.
Yeah, and for Brady, Marlon will just be getting bigger and bigger and bigger in those mirrors, and that's going to play on in his mind as well. I think he really does have to try and go for the undercut. I feel either of these guys. I think the first to pit is going to be the real winner out of this, and I would expect they could even pit as early as now, if not possibly next lap. They do have that margin behind them, so they don't really have to worry about what the guys behind are doing, but I think they're just going to be pulling the trigger on each other, and I don't know who's going to do it. Marlon's looking very, very quick through a lot of this track and is closing up quite a bit, but they are both starting to use quite a bit of tire, I feel. They're not going to come in this time, maybe next time round, but I think Brady's going to have to defend here. Marlon now he's now got the inside line, so I'm very surprised that Brady just left the door wide open like that, and they'll come down into turn number 1, and Brady will just maybe give a little bit of a tap as they come through turn number 2 there, and that's move done for the lead. So maybe I don't know, maybe Brady is going to pit this lap, and he's happy to let that one go just for now, because he knows that he's going to come in and have fresh tires. But yeah, didn't really seem to put up too much of a fight there.
No, he didn't, but more crucially, Luke Harvey, Thomas McMillan, Brett Loxton, Kurt Stenberg, all the drivers that were just behind this battle for the lead, fighting out for 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th, they've all dived into the pits. So for McMullen and Myers, the time to respond is now. And speaking of responding, how is Marlon McMullen at the moment? Already pulling out quite the margin over Brady Myers. So Myers really having made the most of his tyres, not quite got the same level of grip as he would like at the moment. So I reckon he will 100% be in on this lap. We'll have to wait and see what McMullen does. He has a lot of car pace right now. He could potentially come in 1 lap later, but of course opens himself up for an undercut from Myers at that point. So we'll be interesting to see what happens here. So we'll wait and see as they make their way now through this little kink before the hard braking zone of Ravazza, and they're both going to be staring each other down, trying to react off what each other is doing. And I would expect as they make their way through one of the hardest traction points on the circuit, there comes Marlon McMullen. He's going to dive in, and so will Brady Myers. And the pit stops we've been seeing from the likes of Harvey, Loxton, McMillan have all been just over 19 seconds. But the overall pit delta here is a massive 53 to 55 seconds. But Brady Myers, very, very quick through the pit lane, of course, making a lot of ground with a few little techniques you can do with the gear shifts, and also just manually not using the pit limiter and doing it yourself. So Myers making a little bit of lap time that way, and that could be the difference in the end at the end of these pit stops.
And he was really hot onto the pit entry too. It was actually 14 kilometers an hour over as he came over the pit entry line there. So I think he slowed it down enough to not incur a penalty. He's off the jacks, but Marlon does come out just ahead, but they are nose to tail. So he's definitely closed that gap right up, and might even have, I don't think he'll have a run into turn 1, but he's right there at least.
Yeah, absolutely. And Luke Harvey isn't even across the start-finish line just yet. So these guys have all the time in the world to fight one another if they so wish. McMullen just a little bit of a wiggle on the rear brakes there into turn number 1. Not as confident, but that said, Brady Myers kicks up the rear tyres once and twice again out of the first Tamburello complex chicane. So this fight, I think, is going to go down all the way to the wire. But just at the end of the shot there, Luke Harvey is still lurking. And if you give Luke Harvey even half a shot of the race win, he'll go for it.
Yeah, he just needs to find a tiny bit more pace in that car, but he's the gap to the lead doesn't seem to be as dramatic as it did before. Luke had a very good time in the pit lane.
Oh, Brady! Brady's around it!
Oh my goodness. Wow. Brady, well done, mate. But get your boots back on and go. That was a huge moment. I think we'll get a Cut Price Racing replay of that for you, because that was very close to being race ending for both of those guys. Looks like he just took a little bit of grass on the entry into turn number 8 there and just managed to keep it on the track. I mean, he didn't, and he did, but very lucky there from Brady Myers. But that's going to really, really cut his chances of winning this race now, because he's got probably at least a second and a half up to Marlon McMullen now.
Yeah, and he would not have done those tyres any favours either. And we have seen this tyre wear hasn't been quite as good as McMullen's. So for Brady Myers, you know, now is the time to really prove your worth and fight for this win and show what you're capable of. Crossing the start-finish line, and the gap between the two stands at 1.4 seconds, which is not out of the question at all. We saw in the first stint Myers had a lot of car pace at the start of the stint. So for Brady Myers, the time is now, and he launches it over the Tamburello chicane, two-wheeling completely, and he's going to really, really push to cut that gap down.
Yeah, but you know, he did have really good pace in the beginning of this race, and I believe if the race before this is anything to go by, he's got a lot of speed in that car. So if he can just really keep it together, put his head down, and make sure he doesn't spin those tires too much, he may be able to catch back up to Marlon. But then passing's going to be another thing, and it is going to be very difficult to get past Marlon McMullen. But I mean, Marlon may not fight as much as we anticipate, him being in the lead of the championship and looking relatively safe up the front there. That being said, though, Brady is one of the people that with a few good results can take that championship away from him. So he may be a little more resistant to the likes of Myers than someone else who's not so far up the order. But Brady Myers, wow, really took a lot of curve on the entry into Tamburello there. Into Variante Alta. But yeah, he's been looking good in that car. We'll hope he can bring it forward.
Another battle that was happening before the pit stops was the battle involving Thomas Hinz, Kurt Stenberg, and Michael Cracknell. And that's all changed a little bit in the pit stops, because Cracknell now finds himself behind Stenberg, and Stenberg finds himself behind Hinze. But the issue for Hinze is he has taken quite a fair bit less fuel than the two drivers behind him in the space of almost a second and a half. So we'll have to keep an eye on this if Hinze does in fact have enough fuel to make it to the end and doesn't have to fuel save too heavily. But expect Hinze just to fall back just a little bit, I think, into the gearboxes of Kurt Stenberg and Michael Cracknell. So this is a battle to keep an eye on, as Stenberg just doing a little bit of weaving to try and break the slipstream of Michael Cracknell. And Daniel Williams is actually going to rejoin right into the middle of this, and it's not going to make life easy on Cracknell, and he somehow slots the gap in the middle. So Daniel Williams, the freshest tyres of anyone on the grid at this moment, so he's going to have a lot of car speed in that All-Star Motorsports cars, but he does have a very, very tough to beat Michael Cracknell behind, and a very, very willing to fight Kurt Stenberg in front.
Yeah, I mean, I think Daniel was even behind Michael before they came into the pits. So he's done a very, very good job there to stay out and actually do a bit of an overcut there. And now he's got a little bit of a gap, but Michael Cracknell is looking very, very racy. He's obviously got hot tires, and Daniel Williams still having to get those tires up to temperature. They should be coming up into their zone pretty much towards the end of this lap. So very, very shortly, he will be at his maximum level of grip for this second stint, and he should have a couple of laps worth of that. But Kurt Stenberg in this pack of cars has the oldest tires. He's currently nearly 4 laps old, I believe. So he's going to have to defend quite heavily from Daniel and Crackers towards the end of this stint for sure.
And we just have had another retired time, and Dominic Savwicki had quite an odd issue there coming out of the Tamburello corner and just absolutely slammed into the wall. So I'm not sure what was happening there for Dominic, but unfortunately will retire from this race. So it hasn't been the best debut for him, unfortunately. A driver I haven't seen this series before, but always great to see new drivers trying out these V8 Supercars, because these are not the easiest cars on the iRacing platform to master. So always good to see new faces coming out and really trying their hand at these cars. And of course, if there are any drivers from overseas or whatever that aren't too used to the V8 Supercar category or this series, it'd be fantastic to get more of you guys in this category. But at the moment, it's Daniel Williams looking up the inside into the Variante Villeneuve. They're trying to make a move on Stenberg. Stenberg just a little bit deep at the second part of the chicane and almost got vulnerable into the Tosa hairpin. So Stenberg really having to watch his mirrors at the moment. Daniel Williams applying a lot of pressure. And of course, Stenberg is not going to want to let this one go at all. And at the moment, Daniel Williams, so much car speed, it almost looks like it might be a matter of time at this point.
Yeah, I think so. And as we said, Kurt on significantly older tires, nearly 4 laps older than of Daniel Williams behind, who is looking very good. And Stenberg just getting pretty loose there. Daniel actually just checking up a little bit, thinking there might have been an accident. He's going to snick his nose down into turn number 11 here, but I don't think he's going to do anything with that. Going to try and get some momentum through that chicane there. Not able to do so, and has actually opened himself up to Michael Cracknell. Crack is going to have a bit of a look around the outside at turn number 13 into the Ravazza complex down turn 14 and 15. They go side by side, and a little bit of contact on the exit. Daniel Williams having to get forced wide there a little bit, but they all come out relatively cleanly. All the panels are still on the cars, and now Crackers is going to have a look on Kurt Stenberg. He's got the draft up into turn number 1. Is he going to be able to do anything with it? Having a bit of a look, might look down the inside, maybe a little far back. He's going to send it in there. He's up nice and, oh, very, very close there. Just run it a little wide. Daniel Williams now going to try and go around the outside at turn number 3. That's not going to work, but maybe onto the inside at turn number 5. Looks like he's a little far back this time. But nice little trade between those guys there. Cracker's almost getting it done, just losing a bit of rear grip on the mid corner there in turn 1, as he's now defending on the inside from Daniel Williams, trying to get a bit more of a crisscross and get the better exit speed on Crackers. They're going to go at it again, this time up into turn number 8. Cracknell going to give a bit of a tap as they come up, but Daniel going to have the call. Oh, and there's a big hit. There's a bit of contact there. Crackers up on 2 wheels and out the other side of the corner. He's going to have to relinquish another position to Leon Tanda, and he's going to come back charging with red mist for sure.
Absolutely, but look what this has done. It has added a brand new train into this battle pack, including Jamie McKnight, Steve Jansen, Scott Sislowski, and also Corey Preston involved. And look at this battle pack. This is angry as you like, heading into the Variante Alta. These guys are door to door almost, and somehow they all make their way through. But this has now turned into one of the biggest trains we have had all race, which is fantastic to see. But you're definitely right about Michael Cracknell. He's going to be having the red mist for sure, and he's going to be charging through this field with 7 laps to go. But the real question is, does he have any kind of steering damage? We'll jump on board with him down this straight, and actually, that Evolution Racing Team car is built well, because that looks like the steering is just about straight. So Michael Cracknell might be able to fight for another day, but he does have to find a way past Leon Tanda.
Yeah, it does look pretty straight to me, and with the pace that he's had in that car, I don't think he should have too much troubles catching back up to Leon and making a pass. And Stenny's been really, really lucky out of all that. He's now got a big gap to the cars behind him, and he was looking like he was going to be losing a few positions to those guys. So he's now got a bit of a gap behind. We're just having a look at Corey Preston, who's just gone door to door with Scott Sislowski through turn number 5 and 6, the Variante Villeneuve. And he comes out of turn number 7 with some good traction there. So another spot for Corey Preston. He's up into 14th position this race, starting from, where did he start? 26, so up 11 positions so far. Doing very well, and hopefully he can make it through a few more cars without incident before the end of this race. He's got Steve Jansen up ahead of him, who's also been getting it on a little bit all throughout this race and has had some fairly good pace. Jamie McKnight's up in this pack as well. He's someone who we haven't really talked about much at all tonight. He's having a pretty quiet one, albeit can't imagine it's too quiet sitting in the middle of this train for so long.
No, not at all. You're definitely going to be kept busy in this little battle pack, aren't you? And of course, he has drivers in front of him, drivers behind him as well. So McKnight has it all to think about at the moment as we make our way now to 6 laps to go. And he's got himself a little bit of gap now, both in front and behind. So he might have a little bit of a straight or so, maybe a straight and 2 corners or so, just to have nothing to think about. But nonetheless, Steve Jansen is going to be getting very racy potentially if he has any opportunity. But also we have more drama happening on the circuit, Zach.
Yeah, we're just having a look at Daniel Williams having a bit of a move, and McKnight, just as we were talking about him, goes off in the background, getting very lost into turn number 1 there. Daniel Williams going to have a bit more of a look down into turn number 5 again, but not able to make it happen this time round. Not quite up far enough, the car of Michael Cracknell in his number 8 Evolution Racing Team machine. But yeah, McKnight now at the back of this train after we were just saying he was having a bit of a quiet race. He got very, very crossed up coming into turn number 1 there. And Michael Cracknell still having to do a little bit of defending as they're trying to catch back up to Leon Tander. But Leon, with all this battling behind him, is keeping a pretty good pace up the front there. And he's not really pulling away, but they're not able to catch him with those guys battling. We're just going to have a look now up to Brett Loxton and Thomas McMillan for P number 4 and 5. Thomas has been edging up ever closer on Brett through this last stint and is finally on the rear bumper now and looking for a way past that number 11 car, Brett Loxton.
Yep, so we'll see what he can do down this front straight. A very nice exit there for Thomas McMillan, who has been on a bit of a run of form lately, even picking up that race win in split number 2 at Watkins Glen. But doesn't look like he's going to have anywhere enough overspeed on Brett Loxton into turn number 1. So we'll have to wait one more lap at least. He's going to find his way through a little bit of re-brake there for McMillan into turn number 1, but actually gets a very nice mid-corner. Now sets himself up for a beautiful exit out of the first chicane, and will he be able to do anything? Loxton is trying to defend as well as he can, and does eventually manage to persuade McMillan to back out of it. So Loxton will hold on to that position if he doesn't run too wide, and this could open up the door into Tosa, and McMillan gonna dive it to the inside. Very late move, gets it done, stopped on the apex, and now it's a drag race now up the hill, which does have a bit of a kink in it, so it can be very, very tough to see where your opponent is. But unfortunately for McMillan, his opponent is right in front of him, but maybe not for longer. Shows the nose, has to back out of it as well. So McMillan will have to wait another day as Brett Loxton, with that amazing defense that we have seen so many times this season, holds on to position number 4. And a few drivers are holding on to their positions at the moment, including Brady Myers, who has been well and truly caught by Luke Harvey, who has been setting some blistering lap times at the moment. In fact, Myers did respond on the last time around, but that gap was out to 2 seconds at one point. Currently, it is a whole heck less. So Luke Harvey trying his best to get to the back of Brady Myers, but at the moment just trying to get the best exit. A little bit of wheel spin there for the Trans-Tasman Racing driver. Not able to do it this time around, so we'll wait and see how this transpires with just 4 laps to go. 20 laps down, and it's going to be a very interesting end to this race. The tyres are starting to go off on a lot of drivers. Of course, McMullen and Myers are on the same tyre length strategy, whereas Harvey actually has the oldest tyres of the drivers on the podium at the moment. So he's got a lot of work to do if he's going to close this gap down, but at the moment doing a very good job of it. So we'll turn our attention to Daniel Williams, who is getting very racy at the moment. He's involved in this massive battle pack involving Michael Cracknell and also behind Steve Jansen as they all close up into turn number 1, and no one able to get any kind of run so far. And they now make their way down this straight. And it's going to be very, very tense because this is the part of the race where, you know, you're really fighting for every position. So the intensity goes up every little notch because every move you make in these next few laps could be so critical to your race result at the end as they fire their way into the Tosa hairpin, and Williams getting so close to the back of Michael Cracknell's car, which has to be unsettling, but even more unsettling is the rear end grip of Daniel Williams out of Tosa. And it's going to be very, very tough at this point for Michael Cracknell to hold back. It looks like the best of his car has been done after that unfortunate incident that saw him cop a massive hit in the left door from Kurt Stenberg. So his car not quite as quick as it once was, unfortunately, but he'll nonetheless be happy to still be in this race. Of course, was out on lap number 1 at Zolder. Found himself out at lap number 1, once again, turn number 5 at Montreal. But he has now made his way to lap number 20. Got himself into a fantastic position, which is great to see for the Evolution Racing Team driver. Daniel Williams, though, still looking very menacing. And of course, we can't forget about the little battle pack behind. Corey Preston has been on a charge in this race, as was mentioned before, currently up 13 positions, which is a great result for him, considering that we don't often see him in the Holden. Of course, normally a driver that does run the Ford. So it's a little bit odd, I have to admit, seeing him in this Holden, but nonetheless, got a lot of straight line speed in this car at the moment, and just trying to get a little bit closer to the back of Steve Jansen. Of course, these guys have been very close, but we'll have a look at Michael Cracknell, who is getting closer and closer rapidly at the back of Leon Tander, who I would not want to be Leon Tander at this point in the race because he has a very angry pack behind him. And also, we'll turn our attention as well to Brady Myers, who has a lot more trouble than he has had recently, because Luke Harvey has well and truly found the back of the Race Stars Progression Racing Australia 22 car. Of course, it's normally the 22. Brady stuck with the 4th highest I rating in this field, so he's representing car number 4, and car number 3 is hunting him down quick.
Yeah, Luke Harvey must have found a whole lot of pace because he had quite a bit of a gap. I mean, it was about a second and a half, so he's been able to draw that back, and it looks like he might have even started to close up a little bit on McMullen as well. So Harvey doing an absolutely awesome job to get that car back up onto Brady Myers there. And how many laps have we got now? 2. Sorry, guys. Had the old Windows updates take care of me before, which is why Bo had to go solo. We got 2 laps of this race left, and if Luke really gets his head down, I think he might be able to get a move going. Does have that slipstream, but he is a little bit far back this time around as they come into turn number 1. But one more time around, and it might not be the same story.
No, not at all. Of course, Luke Harvey has so much pace at the moment, which I am surprised considering his older tyres. And look at Brady Myers. You could not get any more two-wheeled over that first curve if you tried, and he does have to be careful because there is a pretty picky slowdown on the inside of that first left-hander, so has to be careful. But of course, he doesn't care about slowdowns right now. All he cares is about fighting for his life. There's position number 2, but you don't want to leave the door as open as you did there into Tosa. And Luke Harvey almost thought about it, but Luke Harvey, one of the most respected and well-known racers in this field, will not try anything that is half a move. He will always make sure that the move is well and truly on. So for Brady Myers, he has to make sure that the door is closed at every overtaking opportunity from here on.
Yeah, absolutely. But, you know, sometimes in order to try and keep that position, you just have to take the line that you think is right. And you don't know if when you take that line, if your opponent's going to dive down the inside and have a go or not. So you just kind of have to roll with it and trust that what you're doing is right. And obviously working for Brady Myers right now, as he is still in P number 2, and Luke Harvey not getting the best of exits as they come out of the Variante Alta there and down into Ravazza, the turn number 14 and 15 for the long run onto the straight. It's going to be really important for Luke to get this corner right and get some nice exit speed. Looks like it was pretty good. He's got about 2 to 3 car lengths on Brady Myers. Now that could be enough. You can see now ever so slightly, Luke is now starting to really catch up a little bit, but I don't think he's going to be able to get it down there. He's not. He's going to file back in. So he's only got 1 more lap. We are now in the last, in fact, that was his last chance really. So he's going to have to find somewhere else on this lap where he can get past turn 7. Brady's not going to be able to open the door this time, that's for sure.
No, well, if you can't get a way through, you have to make a way through. And for Luke Harvey, that might be the only opportunity. But he does have to be very, very inch perfect through these final 0.6 of a lap around the Imola circuit, because Myers has got just a little bit of breathing room. It doesn't look like much, but in this situation, it might just be enough to hold on to position number 2. Marlon McMullen is just tantalizing 1 second up the road. That's not to be today for Brady Myers. He came close for the race win, but right now position number 2 might just be his maximum if there is no issues for Marlon McMullen through the Aqua Minerale section with just 3 main corners left to go. But for Brady Myers, he might have got the gap just enough to Luke Harvey, as just has to make sure that he keeps his braking markers in check, get his turn-in points, and Luke Harvey does not do that, runs very wide, and that is it. That is it, over. Luke Harvey just makes a little bit of a mistake, so easy to do, into the Variante Alta chicane, locks the rears, and probably got himself almost a slowdown at that point as well. While we will turn our attention to the number 1 car of Marlon McMullen, making his way through Ravazza, makes his way through the throttle modulation, gets himself onto the front straight, and if there is no fuel dramas, which we have seen so many times in this series, it will be another race win for Marlon McMullen, who will extend his championship lead with a massive drift. Lucky not to put it into the pit wall. I spoke too soon,
nearly.
maybe. But it will be position number 2 for Brady Myers. A great drive from pole position regardless, and Luke Harvey gave it his all, but we'll have to settle. We have a driver around Leon Tander, and he's hit Corey Preston as well. Preston hard into the fans. Leon Tander loses a bunch of spots. Michael Cracknell might just come out the best of them all, and it's also going to be a little bit close for him. against Daniel Williams, which was a great fight for about 23 laps here at Imola. But for Corey Preston, it is heartbreak in the Holden. It was looking like a great charge through the field, but now all of a sudden, he was in 13th. He's going to end up down in position number 16.
Well, at least he only lost a couple of positions there because, yeah, that was pretty unfortunate with that car re-entering the circuit there. Definitely nothing Corey, I mean, he could have possibly been further on the inside on the track, but it's not really his responsibility. It's the responsibility of the driver coming back onto the track to make sure that that's safe, and that obviously wasn't done. So good to see that Corey didn't lose too many positions because he did have a better drive today than he has previously. Maybe that Holden brought him a little bit of extra luck, but we will now take you through our results for this round at Imola in the iRacing V8 Supercar Series. Your winner, Marlon McMullen, our championship leader, extends his margin even further with a race win today here at Imola. He was followed up very closely by Brady Myers, and Luke Harvey took out the next step on the podium. Brett Loxton finished in P number 4 with Thomas McMillan taking out the top 5 position. Brendan Hobson, guess what position? Lucky number 6. Good on you, Hobbo. Good to see you there again, followed by Thomas Hinz in P number 7. Kurt Stenberg, after all that battling, ended up in P number 8. Michael Cracknell, after finally surviving lap number 1, came home in position number 9, and Daniel Williams fought through to claim the final top 10 position.
Yep, and Leon Tander, it's a story of what could have been, but unfortunately finds himself down in position number 11. Steve Jansen, also a driver that was fighting all throughout the field, and will come home in P number 12. Jamie McKnight, Scott Zaslowski, and Greg Sharp make our top 15, and Corey Preston unlucky not to be in that top 15, but finds himself down in P number 16 in his Holden Commodore, which is always an odd sight. Jacob Knight and Ryan Bodilly are 16th and 17th. As Harley Haber will come home in P number 19, a little bit further down the field than he would have liked or would have expected, and David Kinmond rounds out the top 20. Brandon Jackson comes home in P number 21 with a very tough drive. Unfortunately for him in the end, wasn't quite the result he would have liked, but a great drive nonetheless for Jason Cozzi, Kyle Stokes, and Job Stewart, the last of our drivers on the lead lap, with Mark McDonald unfortunately falling 1 lap down, with unfortunately our 2 victims in this race. Dominic Sawicki and Wayne Burke both found themselves in trouble around this very tough 23 laps around Imola, Zach.
Yeah, unfortunately not able to see Wayne coming back through the field as he got a little bit tied up into turn 1 with a couple of other cars there, but it was a good race nonetheless. Good to see a couple of battles up the front and a couple of trains not being fearful of beating a few doors together and having a good time. But I think that the next race that we have on the calendar in this iRacing V8 Supercar Series is really, I think that's really going to be the one to watch this season.
Well, we always know that there is one track the Australian, New Zealand iRacing community in particular will always stack the field, and we're expecting a bumper-sized field because next round, round number 11, is taking place at the Mount Panorama Circuit. It's Bathurst. It is going to be one of the best races all season long, which I'm definitely looking forward to, and it's one to very much mark on your calendars. But also more dates to be marking on your calendars. It includes the Geodesic Racing Oceanic Sprint Championship, which is going to be taking place on Wednesday night. And that's going to be at the Phillip Island Circuit. GT3 cars around Phillip Island, Zach. That's always a tough ask.
Yeah, well, hopefully I'll be able to make it more than 1 lap this time. But it's always really, really good fun to go around Phillip Island, and especially for guys like me where it's kind of our home track. It's always good to be able to go out and really go hard around a circuit that's fairly local to you. But that Oceanic Sprint Championship is a fantastic GT3 championship and always pulls out some fantastic racing. So definitely worth a watch. And we also have the OEC at Spa this weekend. Are we sure?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay, brilliant. Well, we have the Oceanic Endurance Championship at Spa this weekend. We've got prototypes, we've got GT cars. It's all going to be going on. I think we've got a 6-hour race there, which is always fantastic to watch the long endurance events. And we've also got the Indy 500 this weekend as well. So we are stacked up and ready to go with full throttle entertainment for you this week at V8's Online.